Welcome back to Talking Point. So earlier on, I had spoken with Sipiwe Dlamini, who serves as the head of communications for the South African National Defence Force. So one may look at it as striking a cautiously positive attributes to regards to speaking about, of course, the budgetary challenges that the SANDF faces, but also at one side saying that they're confident they can complete this mission, and of course taking on the M23 rebels. So joining me now, I'd like to welcome retired South African National Defence Force General Maomela Motau. General, thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point on Hilaal TV.
Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
It's an absolute pleasure. General Motau, I want to start off, of course, with budgetary challenges because you served in the SANDF for decades, and it seems as if in the last few years there have been real challenges with regards to the SANDF and some of the missions that it's trying to complete. I just want to get your view with regards to that. Is that really a sort of legitimate explanation from their side? Or is it really that the SANDF is one of those sacrificial lambs when it comes to the national treasury?
No, definitely the SANDF is facing financial problems. You will know that amongst the requirements of the IMF when they give you money is that you need to cut certain social spending and what other spending which they consider not very necessary. And the Defence Force has been on the receiving end of that type of arrangement.
Now, how does South Africa then go forward? Because here we've got a defense force that really needs to make sure that not only is it defending our borders here in South Africa, but of course these peacekeeping missions that the SANDF embarks in, it needs the absolute maximum. When you look at currently what's happening in the DRC, the fact that it has taken so many lives to be lost, I mean, this does not spell for good reading, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. I think what we should realize is that I hope this is going to be a wake-up call to the politicians. That then they will realize that the country must be defended far forward, not along the borders. This is an old doctrine of defending your country at your own borders. We need to be able to go and defend at the borders of the whole SADC. Because if we don't defend SADC, then and SADC is undermined, then South Africa will definitely not be able to achieve its objective of stability and economic development.
General Motau, let's look at the Democratic Republic of Congo as a supposed war zone right now. When you see the pictures, you see many of its citizens needing to move from village to village. We see a lot of its citizens really going through quite a lot, and these rebels, of course, capturing the city of Goma, and they're going to make far more inroads with regards to that. For somebody, of course, who's seen war, who's of course been at the head of the army, paint for us that picture, just how much challenges not only does the SANDF have in this region, but also just the volatility that the DRC currently is at this moment.
No, the DRC has been volatile for quite a long time. Unfortunately, after the democratization in South Africa, we had a strong position that we should not allow anybody to destabilize the DRC. And because the DRC became a member of SADC. And therefore, as a member of SADC, there is a common defense a pact which says the attack on one is the attack on all of us, which is because our economies are very related. There is an integrated economy in SADC where we benefit from each other's resources. And as you know, Our economy with the DRC has actually tripled in the past 5 to 6 years. So it is critical for us to see that that volatility is actually not good for the region, I mean SADC, and therefore SADC must take seriously any attempt by anybody to destabilize its territories. So it is important for us to understand that we cannot accept impose a volatile situation.
General Motau, I want to talk on rebel groups, and I don't know whether, under your mentorship, have you faced, rebel groups? Because, I mean, this is a different animal you're facing compared to when you're taking on the national army of a country. And one can look at the way these rebel groups operate. Of course, number one, they get backed as a proxy by another nation, and it seems, of course, M23 is backed by Rwanda. How much of a challenge is it that the SANDF faces in facing or taking on the M23 group? The way they move is different. The way they operate it goes against the definition of the actual wartime methods that a national army would use. Maybe talk to us about that, enlighten the viewer, the difference between an actual rebel group and that of a national army.
Let me just be forthright.
Yeah.
We are not dealing with M23 here.
Yeah.
Here we are dealing with the Rwandan forces. It is very clear. If you can see the weapons these guys are carrying, and the way their uniforms, how they are well taken care of. If you look at that rebel, you'll think it's an American Marine soldier, the way he is dressed and the way he's armed. And we know that he's being armed by Rwanda. We know those weapons they don't come from the region. These are the weapons which are not used in the region. We have seen these weapons in some places like Israel. It's not, and therefore, what we are seeing there is a Rwanda which wants to undo the freedom and democracy of the people of the Congo for its own ulterior motives. The tactics are very well known to us. They did the same thing when Zimbabwe had to be forced to use very heavy weapons to fight with them. And therefore, when we went to the negotiations, people says Rwanda has got security concerns. When we helped the Congolese negotiate, I was leading the negotiations which produced what we call the Pretoria Agreement, where we brought all the rebel groups, and they all agreed. Because we didn't say, you don't have a legitimate problem, you have a legitimate problem. We said, all of you have got concerns and problems. Every one of you put your problems in front of us. Let's write them down. And when they finished doing that, we said, now it is time for all of you to address those problems. How are you going to address them? And some of the things which are being said, oh no, the concerns of Rwanda, the Banyamulenge, they are being harassed. Those issues were there, but they were proven by the Congolese, who included the Banyamulenge themselves, because the RCD Goma was part of that thing. And the RCD Goma, after the negotiations, they actually occupied a very senior position. They became chief of the army.
But
and you can't say, therefore, that there are legitimate concerns of Rwanda. And they're talking about the Hutu militia. The Hutu militias were ready to negotiate with Rwanda. But Rwanda is not interested in negotiating with them. That is the problem we face. And that is the problem which needs to be addressed.
Yeah, but
yes.
No, but that's what I wanted to touch on, General Motau, before we go to the break. It's not then a problem that not just SADC, because obviously Rwanda forms part of the Lakes Convention. This then needs to be an AU problem, because if Rwanda is backing a rebel force that is causing instability in a country, then surely this needs to be addressed when the AU next meets.
Yes, I agree. The AU is a diplomatic organization in APES, and it's not a military organization. The militaries of the different countries take part in what we can call peacekeeping. But as you know, the AU has not succeeded anyway in putting together a peacekeeping mission. Now, what we should all appreciate is that South Africa is a major country in Africa and a leading country in SADC. And South Africa can therefore not allow the region to be destabilized. South Africa must take stand measures, and it must tell those who are supporting these small rebel groups that this we are not going to take lying down. We are going to take stand measures. We need to take stand measures. We need to make sure Kagame knows our position.
Sure.
Not diplomatically, hey, we must negotiate. No. President Mandela, I've been telling people, President Mandela, when this thing, Kagame tried and Museveni tried this thing before, President Mandela dispatched a very strong delegation. It was a delegation led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alfred Nzo. Joe Mudise, the Minister of Defense, was in that delegation. And Billy Maseka for the Civilian Intelligence Service, and I was there for the Defense Intelligence. Sure. And we went there and delivered very, very strong message that South Africa will not allow that. Museveni moved out. Kagame, for a while, he was quiet. But I think is this inability on the part of South Africa today not to put its foot down. We need to learn to put our foot down. We cannot start saying, hey, the United Nations, hey, the AU, in our own home state. You know, the defense of the Congo is the defense of South Africa. We defend our country far forward. That is our doctrine. We don't want to defend it along our borders. We defend it together with our partners in SADC far forward, as far as the borders of the DRC, the borders of Tanzania. That's where we should be defending SADC.
After the break, I continue my conversation with General Maomela Motau on the South African National Defence Force in the DRC. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Talking Point, wrapping up our conversation with General Maomela Motau, former and currently retired SANDF General. General Motau, thank you so much for staying with us. General Motau, I'm sure you saw images of what looked like SANDF soldiers waving the white flag. Of course, earlier on I had Mr. Dlamini from the Defence Force himself, and of course in an earlier statement they said that those proved to be false imagery. Now, the big question that is being asked is that where does the SANDF draw the line in terms of this current conflict that is happening in the DRC? I ask this because, you know, earlier on you just mentioned that they're not operating like a rebellion group. This is the M23. This seems to be backed by a country, and it seems to be giving them the best military artillery that is out there. Where do we draw the line in this, General Motau? When does South Africa say, enough is enough, let's pull out and let's find other means? Is that going to happen? Is there a possibility for that to happen?
No, Mr. Patel. The red line has been crossed. The red line has been crossed. You don't kill South African soldiers and you think it is just one of those things. And I think if there are people in this country who think it's one of those things, they're making the biggest mistake. They are making the biggest. Tomorrow we'll be attacked here in our country. Tomorrow we'll be attacked here. Now, where to now? I think South Africa must actually deliver very serious blows against the M23 and its supporters. I'm saying we need to use our might. We do have in our armament staples, we do have some ammunition, we do have equipment which can be deployed. But I think there was a misconception on our side as South Africans that there is peace to keep in the Congo. There is no peace to keep in the Congo. All what we have to do is to force peace. We have to force peace, and we cannot withdraw now, Mr. Patel. We can't do that.
But General Motau, are we not going to then declare war on, I mean, on Rwanda? And I say this because they are the backers of the M23. Is that not a fear? Is there not maybe the SANDF, including maybe even international relations, playing this supposed cautious game that, look, even if we are going to go with all the might that we have, this may really cause a regional conflict that could explode even wider?
You see, you have got an option to surrender or fight, and that there are no two ways. South Africa cannot surrender to Rwanda, and it for some of us, going to war with Rwanda, it's not a possibility. We are not going to fight Rwanda. It's a small country with a small military. They are capable of doing that because we have deployed a battalion there with light weapons and some defensive positions. But if we want to enforce our will on Rwanda, we are going to do it. And we have to do it. We have lost men there. And that the red line has been crossed. There's no other red line except that. You can't be talking diplomatic language, oh, peace, let be peace. No. There are people who will not understand when you talk peace without actually using force at some point. Force, they will either have to understand that and stop doing what they are doing, or else we must employ forces. We must employ force. There is no other red line except this one. This is a red line.
The red line's been crossed. You've said that now, General Motau. Now, how does President Cyril Ramaphosa, because this is a huge year for him, he's of course got the G20 presidency. He sold this idea that South Africa is seen as the big brother of the continent in trying to maintain peace across the entire region. How does he do that? How does he do that when you have Felix Tshisekedi, of course he's come out and spoken, to try and have him on one side and try and negotiate a way of quelling this conflict? Now, you said that there has to be a way to take on this M23 group. But does South Africa have the ability to do that? You've mentioned, of course, the armory is there. Now, what has happened with the soldiers has brought out this old age debate that is the SANDF capable of really defending its borders forward, as you've mentioned. Can the SANDF do that? How does the SANDF do that? Making sure that all the diplomatic protocols are met at the same time.
Look, you can talk diplomacy. Diplomacy never ends. Actually, diplomacy is politics, and the military operations are a continuation of politics through other means. Now, you see, you can be able to make sure that you negotiate through strong arm tactics. South Africa is a big nation. South Africa is looked upon by other countries as a big brother, not what we wished. You see, our president needs to realize that as a president of a country like South Africa, this wish to be known as a peace negotiator without using force, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That is not, it's an ideal which will not work. So he needs to start taking very difficult decisions. And one of them, because this problem which we are facing, I can say is lack of political will on our side. We need to start developing that will to defend our country and defend our regions. That is the undermining of this region is a no-no. And as I've said, there is no other red line to cross except what has been crossed. This has been crossed. We should take everything out of our armories. We have a defense industry here in South Africa. Nobody has. We have it here. Tomorrow morning, if we wish, we can start producing what we don't have. That is, it requires political will. And I don't think there is any politician who is patriotic enough who would say South Africa must not actually stand firm against all these tin pot dictators. There's no. Then you will not be a patriot.
General Motau, one final question. The lives that have been lost, I think as both you and I, South Africans, and the millions would share the same sentiment that this is regrettable. It's as sad as you can get, given that they have families themselves, and both you and I have families ourselves, and they were seen as the breadwinners. They were seen as, the soldiers that would defend not just their family's honor, but the honor of South Africa. And of course, as a general yourself, you would know best than anyone else. South Africa needs to make sure this doesn't happen. And how do they do that? How do we defend our borders from any potential attack that could occur, given that the world's eyes are on South Africa right now, especially what's happening in the DRC? It's going to be difficult, isn't it? And South Africans are asking just a simple question, and I know from a retired general, you would be one of those to answer it. Can we be defended against any attack that could come from outside our borders?
South Africa has got a very credible defense force, which has got the ability to defend our country. And together with our partners in SADC, we have the capability to defend ourselves from anyone of those who may like to create problems in our country. It is possible. And all what we need is political will on our side to make sure we make people around us to understand that anyone who tries these tactics will not escape unpunished. Will not escape unpunished. We can't play the politics of appeasement when people are killing us. You are talking about families. Families are ahead. Particularly so we as generals, I guess I'm talking on behalf of all the generals. When you are a general, you are responsible for the rest of your life for men who are fighting for your country. They're your family. These soldiers who are dead, were killed, they are my family. The SANDF. They're not just other people's children. They are my family. Because we were responsible for creating a defense force which must defend the country. And we were ready to pay even the supreme sacrifice, which they paid. But they paid that supreme sacrifice under the belief and conviction that the people of South Africa and the government of South Africa, it will always be on their side. Now, the worrying thing for me now is that when these corpses come back here, we need to be informed so that all the generals and senior officers must be there to receive these heroes who fought for South Africa.
Sure, of course.
You know, we must be there. Because you see, you can't behave like this is normal. Somebody, your relative or somebody there is going to be, and to make matters worse, they are going to be buried in the villages we don't know. They will never remember them. There is no place which our government has allocated for for our heroes to be buried, so that people know here lies the heroes of this country. Here lies those who are ready to pay the supreme sacrifice for the defense of the Republic. And that is the only assurance. If we can't give soldiers that assurance, then you will not be defended. But if you give them that assurance,
Sure.
then you will be defended.
General
We are
Motau,
ready to lay down our lives.
General Motau, unfortunately, we have come to the end. Our time is against us. But thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patel.
That's General.
All the best to you too.
No, thank you so much. That's General Maomela Motau, retired SANDF General. Well, of course, this is going to be raging for many days to come. You have to feel it for the families of the soldiers that have died. They died representing the country, but of course, as General Motau had said, there has to be political will. The question will arise, does South Africa pull out of this conflict? Does South Africa, at the other side of the coin, use all its diplomatic tools to negotiate for peace in the DRC? Or the other side of the other coin, does South Africa stamp its authority and show that it does have the military capability of taking out these M23 rebels? It will be a discussion that will be going on for a very long time. That's all we have for you on Talking Point. From myself, Hilaal, the rest of the team in Johannesburg, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.